The scar across Liam Cross's left temple throbbed as he studied the holographic display floating above the conference table. Stars, trade routes, and territorial boundaries painted a complex web of interstellar politics that made his old battlefield maps look like children's drawings. At 32, he'd seen enough combat to last 3 lifetimes, but this assignment felt more dangerous than any firefight. The Velari Dominion controls 70% of the outer sector's trade routes, Ambassador Helena Kane explained, her weathered face grim beneath silver hair. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, their military unmatched. We need this alliance. Cross. Liam's 2 hands remained steady on the table despite the churning in his stomach. He'd lost good soldiers to keep trade ships safe from pirates, only to learn that true security lay in the hands of alien aristocrats who viewed humanity as an amusing curiosity at best, and they specifically requested a human companion for their Heiress. Liam asked, his voice carrying the rough edge of someone who'd shouted orders over plasma fire. Not just any human. Ambassador Kane activated another hologram, showing a striking alien woman with pale blue skin and flowing red curls that seemed to move with their own life. Heiress Elera of the Velari throne. She's telepathic, highly intelligent, and according to our intelligence, completely unpredictable. The image rotated slowly, revealing sharp features and eyes that seemed to pierce through the projection itself. Even in a mere hologram, something about her presence made Liam's pulse quicken. Her skin appeared almost luminescent, with intricate silver markings that traced delicate patterns along her neck and shoulders. What exactly does companion mean in their culture? Liam asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Kane's expression grew more serious. The Velari have ancient bonding rituals called Keth Moran. It's part diplomacy, part intimate ceremony. The details are classified at the highest levels, but our xenoanthropologists believe it involves psychological and physical submission to prove trust and worthiness. Liam felt his jaw tighten. So I'm being sent as a sacrifice. You're being sent as Earth's representative, Kane corrected firmly. Your military record shows exceptional survival skills and adaptability. Your diplomatic training prepared you for hostile negotiations. If anyone can navigate this successfully, it's you. The weight of his 2 legs seemed to anchor him to the chair as the reality sank in. Earth's entire future in the galactic community rested on his ability to satisfy an alien princess whose idea of diplomacy involved rituals that sounded more like elaborate tests of dominance. What happens if I fail? He asked. Kane's silence spoke volumes before she finally answered. Economic isolation. Possible military retaliation. The Velari don't believe in second chances, Cross. In their culture, rejection of their hospitality is considered an act of war. Liam stood, his 2 legs carrying him to the viewport where Earth hung like a blue marble against the star field. Somewhere out there, beyond the frontier worlds and trading posts, waited an alien woman who held his planet's fate in her hands. He'd survived 3 tours in the frontier wars, lost half his unit to enemy fire, and earned scars that would never fully heal. But this felt different, more personal, more dangerous. When do I leave? He asked. Transport departs in 6 hours. The journey to Velari Prime takes 3 weeks through hyperspace. Kane stood beside him, her reflection ghost-like in the viewport. Cross, I won't lie to you. We don't fully understand what you're walking into. Their culture is ancient, complex, and built around power dynamics we're still trying to comprehend. All we know for certain is that the Heiress has refused 17 previous suitors from their own species. You're their first human candidate. Lucky me, Liam muttered, unconsciously touching the scar on his temple. He'd gotten that one diving behind cover while saving a wounded comrade. Simple. Straightforward. This mission would be anything but. 3 hours later, Liam stood in his sparse quarters, packing the few personal items he'd been allowed to bring. His military-issue tactical knife, a photo of his sister's family, and a small stone from the beach where he'd grown up. Everything else had been selected by the diplomatic corps to make the right impression on an alien princess who could read minds. As the ship powered up its engines, Liam strapped himself into the passenger compartment and closed his eyes. In 3 weeks, he would meet Heiress and discover whether Earth's future lay in alliance or war. The vibration of the ship's departure thrummed through his bones, carrying him toward a destiny that would challenge everything he thought he knew about duty, desire, and the price of peace among the stars. The crystalline spires of Velari Prime rose like frozen lightning against a violet sky, their surfaces reflecting 3 different suns in a dazzling display that made Liam squint despite his transport's filtered viewport. The palace complex sprawled across floating platforms connected by bridges of pure energy, a testament to technology that made Earth's greatest achievements look primitive. Liam's escort, a tall Velari male named Counselor Theron, had remained silent during the hour-long journey from the spaceport. His pale blue skin bore intricate silver markings that seemed to shift and pulse with his emotions, and his golden eyes held a mixture of curiosity and disdain that made Liam's military instincts bristle. "The Heiress awaits in the ceremonial chamber," Theron finally spoke, his accent lending a musical quality to the words. "Remember, human, you are here by her grace alone. Show proper deference." The chamber's doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a space that defied physics. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, filled with swirling patterns of light that moved like living aurora. At the chamber's center, on a raised dais of black stone, stood Heiress. The hologram had failed to capture her presence. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow with inner light, and her red curls moved as if underwater, each strand alive with subtle motion. She wore a flowing gown that appeared to be woven from starlight itself, clinging to curves that spoke of both elegance and hidden strength. But it was her eyes that stopped Liam, cold, violet orbs that seemed to see straight through to his soul. Liam Cross of Earth, her voice carried the same musical quality as Theron's, but with an undertone of command that made his spine straighten involuntarily. "Approach." As he walked toward the dais, Liam felt a strange tingling in his mind, like fingers gently probing at the edges of his thoughts. Her telepathic abilities were already at work, and the sensation was far more intimate than he'd expected. "Interesting," Elira murmured, tilting her head as she studied him with those penetrating eyes. "Your surface thoughts are chaotic, fear, determination, curiosity, and something else. Attraction, perhaps." Heat rushed to Liam's face. "Your Highness." Silence. The word carried such authority that his jaw snapped shut. She descended from the dais with fluid grace, her 2 legs carrying her in perfect balance as she circled him like a predator examining prey. "You've come to participate in the Keth Moran, yet you know nothing of what it truly means." Her fingertips, he noticed, bore the same silver markings as the rest of her skin, and when she reached out to trace the scar on his temple, the touch sent electricity through his entire body. Her telepathic probe deepened, and suddenly she was seeing flashes of his memories, battles, loss, the weight of command. "A warrior," she mused, her hand still against his face, "but also something more. You carry guilt, don't you? Survivor's remorse. The burden of those you couldn't save." "Stop," Liam managed, his 2 hands clenching into fists at his sides. The mental intrusion felt more violating than any physical assault. Elira's eyes flashed with something that might have been approval. "Good. You have strength to resist, even when overwhelmed. The Keth Moran requires both submission and will, a paradox that has broken lesser beings." She withdrew her touch, leaving him gasping as if he'd been underwater. "The ritual is not mere political theater, human. It is a sacred bonding that reveals truth through vulnerability. I will strip away every wall you've built, every lie you tell yourself, until nothing remains but your essential self." "And if I refuse?" Liam asked, his voice hoarse. Her smile was both beautiful and terrifying. "You cannot. Your species' future depends on your success. But know this, I have rejected 17 suitors from my own kind. Princes, warriors, scholars, all found wanting. What makes you think a primitive human can succeed where they failed?" The challenge in her voice stirred something deep in Liam's chest. He'd faced impossible odds before, survived when others hadn't. "Maybe because I'm not trying to impress you with titles or bloodlines. I'm here to do a job." "A job?" Heiress laughed, the sound like silver bells. "Oh, my dear human, you truly understand nothing. The Keth Moran is not work. It is revelation. It is the complete surrender of self to another's will, the breaking down of barriers until two minds touch without pretense." She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her scent, something like ozone and exotic flowers. "You will submit to me, Liam Cross. Your body, your mind, your very soul will be mine to command. Only through absolute vulnerability can trust be proven. Only through surrender can strength be revealed." Her telepathic presence pressed against his mind again, more insistent this time. He caught glimpses of her own thoughts. Loneliness, duty, the crushing weight of an empire's expectations. For just a moment, the imperious Heiress flickered, revealing something almost fragile beneath. "The ritual begins at sunset," she announced, the moment of vulnerability vanishing behind her regal mask. "You will be prepared by my attendants and brought to the sacred chamber. We shall see if humanity breeds true companions or merely clever animals." As she turned to leave, Liam found his voice. "What if we're both surprised by what we find?" Heiress paused, her head turning slightly to regard him with those violet eyes. "Then, human, we shall both be changed by it." The chamber doors sealed behind her, leaving Liam alone with the weight of what lay ahead. In a few hours, he would face a ritual designed to break him down completely, overseen by an alien woman whose very presence made his pulse race with equal parts fear and fascination. He touched the scar on his temple where her fingers had traced, still feeling the phantom electricity of her touch. Whatever the Keth Moran involved, he sensed it would be the greatest battle of his life, and the stakes had never been higher. The sacred chamber was a stark contrast to the crystalline grandeur of the palace. Here, walls of polished obsidian reflected dancing flames from braziers filled with aromatic oils that made the air shimmer with intoxicating vapors. Silk cushions in deep purples and golds created an intimate space at the room's center, where Liam waited in the simple white robe the attendants had given him. His heart hammered against his ribs as the chamber doors opened. Heiress entered alone, her ceremonial attire revealing more of her luminescent blue skin marked with those intricate silver patterns. The flowing fabric seemed to respond to her movements, clinging and shifting in ways that made his breath catch. "The Keth Moran has 3 phases," she explained, her voice softer now but no less commanding. "First, the opening of barriers. I must see past your defenses to understand what drives you." She settled onto the cushions across from him, her violet eyes beginning to glow with telepathic energy. "Give me your hands." When their palms touched, the world exploded into sensation. Liam gasped as her consciousness flooded into his mind, not gentle this time but demanding, insistent. She rifled through his memories like pages in a book, pausing at moments of pain, fear, and desire. The firefight on Kepler Station, his surgeon's scream cut short by plasma fire. The weight of command as he led the survivors through 3 days of hell. The hollow feeling when he received his commendation, knowing it was built on graves. "Your guilt feeds your strength," Velari murmured, her physical voice seeming distant while her mental presence grew stronger. "You think yourself a failure, yet you saved lives through your choices." Her exploration deepened, finding memories he tried to bury. The loneliness after the war, the failed relationships with women who couldn't understand the shadows in his eyes, his secret desires for surrender, for someone strong enough to take control when his own strength failed him. "Fascinating," she breathed, and suddenly her mental touch became caressing rather than invasive. "You crave submission, yet fight it. The warrior's paradox." Heat flooded through him as she found his most private fantasies, Dreams of being dominated, of surrendering control to worthy hands. The shame he'd always felt about these desires dissolved under her acceptance, her understanding. Phase 2, Illyra whispered, moving closer until their scent surrounded him. The binding of trust. Her hands moved to the ties of his robe, and he didn't resist as the fabric fell away. In the flickering firelight, she traced the scars that mapped his body's history. The plasma burn on his shoulder, the knife wound across his ribs, the old shrapnel marks on his thigh. Each mark tells a story of survival, she said, her fingertips leaving trails of sensation across his skin. Your body is a testament to endurance. When she shed her own garments, revealing the full glory of her alien form, Liam's breath stopped. Her blue skin seemed to glow from within, and the silver markings extended across her entire body in patterns that spoke of ancient meaning. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species, otherworldly yet utterly feminine. Now you see me as I am, she said, settling astride him with natural grace. And I see you. No lies, no pretense. Only truth remains. The physical joining was unlike anything he'd experienced. Her alien anatomy was similar enough to human but different in subtle ways that made every sensation new. But it was the mental connection that truly overwhelmed him, their thoughts and emotions blending until he couldn't tell where he ended and she began. Through their bond, he felt her own hidden vulnerabilities. The crushing loneliness of royal duty, the weight of an empire's expectations, the desperate need for genuine connection beneath her dominant facade. She was as trapped by her role as he was by his mission, both of them prisoners of larger forces. I've never felt this before, she gasped, her mental voice mixing with her physical one as they moved together. The others, they submitted but never truly connected. With you, I feel complete. Her telepathic abilities allowed her to know exactly what he needed, how to touch and tease and drive him to the edge of sanity. But in return, he felt her responses as if they were his own, understanding her body's desires with instinctive precision. Two legs intertwined with two legs, two hands exploring alien curves, two minds becoming one. The third phase began without announcement. The fusion of souls. Reality seemed to dissolve as their climax approached, the boundaries between self and other vanishing entirely. Liam felt himself falling into her consciousness, his identity dissolving into something larger, more complete. But instead of losing himself, he found something unexpected. In that moment of ultimate vulnerability, he discovered his own worth reflected in her eyes. The guilt and shame that had haunted him since the war burned away in the fire of her acceptance. He was not broken. He was strong enough to surrender, brave enough to trust. When awareness returned, they lay entwined among the scattered cushions, her red curls spilled across his chest like liquid fire. The telepathic connection had settled into a warm background hum, no longer overwhelming but constant and comforting. The ritual is complete, Illyra whispered against his skin, but her voice carried something that hadn't been there before, uncertainty. But I find myself changed by it. Liam's arms tightened around her, his two hands stroking the silver patterns on her back. Changed how? She lifted her head to meet his eyes, and he saw wonder there, and something that might have been fear. I was meant to dominate you, to prove humanity's subservience to my will. Instead, I find myself bound to you in ways I don't understand. The Keth Moran was supposed to be a test of your worthiness. Instead, it revealed something I didn't expect. What's that? Her smile was soft, vulnerable in a way that transformed her from imperious Heiress to something achingly human despite her alien nature. That perhaps I've been searching for an equal, not a subject. And perhaps I've found one. Outside the sacred chamber, political forces were already in motion. But for now, in the intimate space between sunset and dawn, two beings from different worlds had found something neither had expected to discover. A connection that transcended duty, species, and the vast gulf between the stars. Dawn brought unwelcome reality crashing back into their sanctuary. Liam woke to find Illyra already dressed in her formal robes, her expression closed and distant as she stared out the chamber's single window at the triple sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "The Council of Nobles demands an audience," she said without turning around. "They wish to hear of your performance in the ritual." The warmth of their connection had cooled to a thread of tension. Liam could feel her internal struggle through their mental bond, duty warring with the emotions the Keth Moran had awakened. He rose and moved to stand behind her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not daring to touch. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked. Her shoulders tensed. "The ritual has stages beyond what we completed. The Council expects absolute domination. They want to see you broken, reduced to a groveling servant, as proof that humanity is inferior. And if you refuse, then I am deemed unfit to inherit the throne." Her voice was barely a whisper. "My cousin Valdris has been waiting for such an opportunity. He leads the faction that opposes any alliance with your species." Through their bond, Liam felt the depth of her conflict. The weight of an empire balanced against feelings she'd never expected to have. He placed his two hands on her shoulders, feeling the silver markings pulse beneath his palms. "There's more," she continued, finally turning to face him. "I've been monitoring communications since the ritual ended. Valdris has been in contact with certain human officials, members of your own diplomatic corps who believe this alliance will weaken Earth's position." The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. "Who?" "Ambassador Kane's aide, Commander Torres, several others in the Interstellar Council. They want this mission to fail, Liam. They're willing to sacrifice you to maintain the status quo." Rage flared through him, the soldier's instincts awakening. He'd been sent as a lamb to slaughter by his own people, a convenient scapegoat if things went wrong. But beneath the anger, he felt something else, a fierce protectiveness for the woman before him. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Alira's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "I want to change everything. The Keth Moran showed me possibilities I'd never considered. What if the ancient ways are wrong? What if strength comes not from domination, but from partnership?" That afternoon, they were summoned to the Grand Throne Room, where the Council of Nobles waited in their formal regalia. Valdris stood at their head, his golden hair and sharp features marking him as pure Velari aristocracy. His amber eyes held barely concealed hatred as they settled on Liam. "Heiress," Valdris spoke with formal courtesy that fooled no one, "we gather to witness the completion of the Keth Moran. Present your conquered human." Alira's mental presence pressed against Liam's mind, sharing strength and resolve. Together, they walked to the center of the vast chamber where hundreds of nobles watched in expectant silence. "The ritual is complete," Alira announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "The human has proven himself worthy." "Worthy?" Valdris's voice dripped contempt. "We were promised a demonstration of their species' natural subservience. Show us this human crawling at your feet, begging for scraps of your attention." "No." The simple word fell like a thunderclap. Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles as Alira stepped forward, her bearing regal and uncompromising. "The Keth Moran revealed truths that challenge our understanding," she continued. "Strength is not proven through the breaking of others, but through the courage to stand as equals." Valdris's face twisted with fury. "You dare to reinterpret sacred law. The ritual exists to prove the superiority of Velari blood. The ritual exists to find truth," Alira shot back. "And the truth is that this human possesses qualities our own nobility has forgotten. Honor, sacrifice, the strength to be vulnerable. He is not conquered. He is chosen." Through their bond, Liam felt her fear and determination in equal measure. She was gambling everything on a principle that went against thousands of years of tradition. Without thinking, he stepped forward to stand beside her, not behind her as tradition demanded. The gesture sent shockwaves through the assembled nobles. Several gasped, others shouted in outrage, but Valdris merely smiled, and that expression chilled Liam to the bone. "Then you have failed," Valdris declared. By your own admission, you have not completed the Keth Moran, as prescribed by ancient law. The Council has no choice but to declare you unfit to inherit. The Council will do no such thing. Elira's voice carried the full weight of royal authority. I am still Heiress, and I will interpret the sacred rituals as I see fit. Are you? Veldris gestured, and armed guards stepped from the shadows. I'm afraid recent intelligence suggests otherwise. It seems our human guest was sent not as a gesture of good faith, but as a spy. We have evidence of his communications with Earth agents planning to sabotage our negotiations. The lie was expertly crafted, mixing truth with deception. Liam felt Elira's shock through their bond as manufactured evidence appeared on holographic displays. Falsified communications, doctored recordings, all designed to paint him as a traitor. It's fabricated, Liam said, his voice steady despite the weapons pointed at him. Of course you would say that, Veldris smiled coldly. But the evidence is quite convincing. Guards, arrest the spy and escort the failed Heiress to her chambers. The Council will convene tomorrow to select new leadership. As hands reached for them, Elira's mental voice blazed through their connection. Trust me. Tonight, we make our stand. The evening brought chaos. Alarms wailed through the palace as explosions rocked the outer walls. In the confusion, loyal guards freed Liam from his cell and brought him to Elira's private chambers, where she waited with a small group of supporters. Veldris moves faster than expected, she explained tersely. He staged a full coup, claiming I'm mentally compromised by alien influence. Half the palace guard has sided with him. What's our play? Liam asked, his military training taking over. She smiled, fierce and beautiful. We give them a war they'll never forget. But first, she pulled him close, her mouth claiming his in a kiss that was desperate, passionate, and full of promises. Through their bond, he felt her love and fear, her determination to forge a new path, even if it meant destroying the old. Whatever happens, she whispered against his lips, know that you've given me something I never thought I'd have. The courage to be myself. Outside, the sounds of battle grew closer. But in that moment, surrounded by the ruins of an ancient system and facing an uncertain future, Liam had never felt more alive. The battle for the palace raged through the night, but it was unlike any combat Liam had ever experienced. With Elira's telepathic abilities linking them, they moved as one entity across the crystalline corridors, anticipating each other's actions with perfect synchronization. Her mental voice guided him through passages she'd known since childhood, while his tactical expertise kept them alive against superior numbers. The communications array, Elira said as they crouched behind an overturned hover platform, energy bolts scorching the air above their heads. If we can reach it, I can broadcast the truth to the outer territories. Veldris's support comes from fear and tradition, but many nobles still believe in honor. Liam peered around their cover, counting at least 20 guards between them and their destination. His two hands checked his weapon's charge, enough for maybe 10 shots. Long odds. We've faced worse, she replied, and through their bond, he felt her absolute confidence in him. It was intoxicating, that complete trust, worth more than any medal or commendation. They moved like shadows, Elira's telepathy allowing her to sense enemy positions, while Liam's military training found the optimal approach routes. When they encountered resistance, they fought as perfectly coordinated partners, her mental abilities confusing and disorienting opponents, while his precise shooting eliminated threats. But as they neared the communications array, Veldris himself appeared with a full squad of elite guards. His amber eyes blazed with fury as he saw them together, still united despite his best efforts to tear them apart. Enough, he snarled, raising a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Your corruption ends here, cousin. I'll kill the human and restore your sanity by force if necessary. The only corruption here is your hatred. Elira stepped protectively in front of Liam, her own weapon ready. You would destroy our empire's future for the sake of your pride. I preserve our heritage. Valdris fired, but Illyra was already moving, her reflexes enhanced by the mental bond she shared with Liam. The energy bolt seared past her shoulder as she returned fire. The firefight was brief but vicious. Liam's combat experience proved crucial as he systematically eliminated Valdris's guards, while Illyra dueled her cousin with weapons and telepathic assaults. But Valdris was skilled, ruthless, and desperate, a dangerous combination. The deciding moment came when Valdris, realizing he was losing, targeted the array's power core with a thermal charge. If I cannot rule, then the Empire burns with me. Liam didn't think. He simply moved, diving to intercept the charge while Illyra screamed his name through both voice and mind. The explosion should have killed him, but at the last second, Illyra's telekinetic abilities deflected the worst of the blast. Still, the shrapnel tore through his side and legs, sending him crashing to the floor in a pool of blood. Liam. Illyra's mental anguish flooded through their connection as she knelt beside him, her two hands pressing against his wounds while tears streamed down her blue cheeks. The array, he gasped, tasting copper. Finish it. With visible effort, she left his side long enough to activate the communication system. Her voice, carried by Velari technology to every corner of the Empire, spoke truths that had been hidden for too long. She revealed Valdris's conspiracy, the falsified evidence, and most importantly, her vision for a new kind of leadership based on partnership rather than domination. I have found my consort, she announced to billions of watching Velari. Not through conquest, but through connection. Not through breaking his will, but through joining our strengths. The ancient ways have served us, but new times demand new wisdom. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the outer territories, nobles who had grown weary of endless conflict and rigid hierarchy declared their support for the Heiress who dared to challenge tradition. Valdris's remaining forces, seeing the tide turn, laid down their weapons. But victory felt hollow as Liam's life ebbed away despite Illyra's desperate efforts to heal them. Their mental bond carried his fading consciousness, his thoughts growing dim and scattered. "Don't leave me," she whispered, her telepathic voice joined by her physical one. "I can't do this without you." "You can," he managed, his two hands reaching up to touch her face one last time. "You're the strongest person I've ever known, human or Velari." Then inspiration struck her, a desperate gambit born of love and desperation. The Keth Moran had created a mental bridge between them. What if she could use that connection to share not just thoughts and emotions, but life force itself? "The ritual," she breathed. "It's not finished. The true final phase, the complete joining of souls." Before he could protest, she pressed her forehead to his and opened every telepathic barrier she possessed. Their consciousness flowed together like rivers joining the sea, his humanity mixing with her alien nature until they were truly one being in two bodies. She poured her own life energy into him, using their bond to anchor his spirit to the physical world. The process should have killed them both, but something miraculous happened instead. Rather than draining her to save him, their joined essence grew stronger, more complete. The telepathic connection that had begun as a tool of dominance became something unprecedented, a true partnership of equals, each making the other more than they could be alone. When Liam's eyes opened, they held flecks of violet that matched her own. When Illyra stood, silver markings traced faint patterns across her skin that mirrored his scars. They were changed, bonded on a level that went beyond anything the ancient rituals had envisioned. "The Keth Moran is complete," she announced to the assembled nobles who had gathered to witness either their triumph or their death. "But not as our ancestors intended. This is not domination but unity. Not conquest but partnership." In the days that followed, the transformation of Velari society began in earnest. The rigid hierarchies that had ruled for millennia gave way to councils of equals. The Empire's expansion, once driven by conquest, shifted toward trade and cultural exchange. Earth, rather than becoming a vassal state, joined the Velari as true partners in a growing alliance of free worlds. Liam and Elira ruled together, their unique bond allowing them to govern with unprecedented wisdom and compassion. Their love story became legend, proof that even the vastest differences could be bridged by understanding, courage, and the willingness to be vulnerable. On quiet evenings, they would retreat to the chambers where their journey had begun, lying entwined as they shared thoughts and dreams through their permanent telepathic connection. Two hands traced silver patterns on blue skin while violet eyes gazed into human brown, and two hearts beat in perfect synchronization. "Do you ever regret it?" Liam asked one such evening, his voice soft in the candlelit darkness. "Giving up the old ways for something unknown?" Elira's smile was radiant as she pressed closer to him, her red curls spilling across his chest like liquid fire. "Never. The old ways gave me power, but you gave me something far more precious, the courage to use that power for love instead of fear." Their empire thrived under their joint rule, becoming a beacon of hope in a galaxy too often divided by prejudice and fear. And at its heart, the human soldier and the alien Heiress proved that love truly could conquer all, even the vast distances between the stars.